What's up everyone? Alex here, and on this video, I'm gonna answer a much asked question about the Yakuza series. Which one should I start with? If you peruse through numerous forums, Reddit, or even Twitter, chances are you're probably going to get different answers from longtime fans, brand new fans, and the producers of the series. It can get really confusing, and I'm here to answer this question by tackling the most common answers. Now I know, you're expecting a cut and dry answer, but there truly is a different answer depending on who you are and how much time you'd like to put into the series. You're also probably wondering, Alex, what makes you the right person to talk about this question? Funny you ask that. You see, I'm a slight bit of an anomaly in the Yakuza fanbase. While I owned the original Yakuza games on the PS2, I never truly played through a game in the series until Yakuza 3 on the PS3. Since then, I've beaten most of the localized Yakuza games, for the exception of Yakuza KIWAMI, which I'm almost done with, the PS2 releases, and the Dead Souls side story, which I do not own. That said, I have cursory knowledge of the important events that have transpired in both Yakuza 1 and 2, and I feel that I can provide a sufficient middle-of-the-road approach when it comes to answering this question. Speaking of answers, the first answer that you'll probably hear from people is to play the series from the very beginning and work your way up to the present and get caught up. This is the ideal way to experience the series, and if you're up to it, I highly recommend it. Thankfully, you'll be able to play the first games in the series, in the form of Yakuza KIWAMI and Yakuza KIWAMI 2, and the later released prequel, Yakuza 0, on the PlayStation 4. The last game in the Kiryu saga, Yakuza 6, is also available on the PS4. Now, this is where it gets weird, because in order to play Yakuza 3, 4, and 5, you will need to either have a PlayStation 3 to play all of these games, or a PlayStation Now account to at least play 4 and 5. And if you have no PS3, don't wish to buy another console, or spend money on older games, this might feel like a huge hurdle. Personally, I love all the games in the series, and I would love to recommend newcomers to take a leap of faith and start from the beginning and work their way up to the current game. However, I myself am not immune to the new hotness. I want to play the latest in the series so I can talk about it with my friends. Which leads me to this answer: play the latest game in the series. This is the stance that Sega has given whenever a new Yakuza game comes out, and it's understandable. They'd like to sell a lot of copies of their latest game. Normally, I would be okay with recommending the latest game in the series. After all, the Yakuza games generally have self-contained stories with a few connective threads that tie each game together. This trend was bucked, however, with the beginning of Yakuza 6. The game starts immediately after the events of Yakuza 5, and there's a chance that newcomers to the series will ask the question, how did this happen? While all of the games in the series provide a summary of the events in the previous games, you will lose some emotional context and some of the finer details of some of the characters. But here's my take on this. It makes you curious about what transpired before. You're gonna tell yourself, wow, that's a great game. Whatever happened to Kiryu that led him to this point in his life? In this sense, the older games transform from older games to newer games in a way, providing a backstory to your experience. Though, unlike the Star Wars prequels, these prequels are actually pretty good. Believe it or not, there's actually a third answer to this, and this answer advises newcomers to play Yakuza 0, then Yakuza KIWAMI, then Yakuza 6. This answer was actually provided to me by my podcast co-host Daniel, and it's worth considering. He believes that if you're going to start the series, it should be with its best foot forward. Furthermore, since it's the earliest games in the timeline, they should give you just enough context to understand Yakuza 6, despite it being the end of Kazuma Kiryu's story. That said, Yakuza 0 and Yakuza KIWAMI are newer games, and certain quality of life improvements, as well as enhancements to the combat system, will be absent in older games. If you give both games a proper go, and you just can't get into it, then the entire series is absolutely not for you, plain and simple. Regardless of whichever answer you feel is right for you, I do want to take this opportunity to thank you for your interest in the Yakuza series. It always gives me great joy to hear people ask me about it, and hear new people enjoying the games in the series. To think that only a few years ago, us fans of the series thought that we'd never see a new Yakuza game come out in the West. fast forward to now, we've gotten the entirety of Kiryu's story and have secured the series' future in the West. If you're new to the series and have any questions about it, hit me up on Twitter at MyBacklogBattle or leave a comment on this video. I'd love to talk to you about this series. If you're a fan of the series and would like your friends to play the game, please consider sharing this video. Thanks much, and hope to see you all in Kamurocho.